How much have you been blessed today? Yeah, I hear a few of you out there. I have been blessed, and I hope you have too. I want to talk to you today about two people, two individuals who followed a hunch, or maybe it was something stronger, maybe it was a desire, maybe it was hope, and they sought meetings with Jesus. They were both wealthy, they were both successful in meeting with Jesus. But only one went away changed. I'll come back to them. But while we're talking about meetings, I want to read to you from the book of Isaiah chapter 1, verses 13 to 17, as it is in the Message. It says this: "Quit your worship charades. I can't stand your trivial religious games, monthly conferences, weekly Sabbath special meetings. Meetings. I can't stand one more. Ooh. Meetings for this, meetings for that. I hate them. You've worn me out. I'm sick of your religion, while you go right on sinning. When you put on your next prayer performance, I will be looking the other way. No matter how long or loud or often you pray, I'll not be listening." And do you know why? Because you've been tearing people to pieces and your hands are bloody. Go home, wash up, clean up your act, sweep your lives clean of evil doings so I don't have to look at them any longer. Say no to wrong. Learn to do good, work for justice, help the down and out, stand up for the homeless, go to bat for the defenseless. Strong words. Uncompromising words. You see, meetings, even meetings with Jesus, that don't lead to change are a waste of time. I was thinking about this a couple of Sabbaths ago as I stood in the shadows of the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial in Washington, D.C. I challenge anyone to visit that place and not be inspired. It is an enormous block of stone that has had the centre carved out of it and set apart. And on that is a statue of King, and these words are carved into the stone. Out of the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. And all the way around there are other quotations that have been carved into the monument. I want to share another quote from King with you. It's not one that was carved into the monument, although I wish it had been, because it echoes those words that we just heard from Isaiah. This is what he said: "A religion true to its nature must also be concerned about man's social conditions. Any religion that professes to be concerned with the souls of men and is not concerned with the slums that damn them, the economic conditions that strangle them, and the social conditions that cripple them is a dry as dust religion." You may be wondering why I was in Washington, D.C. a couple of Sabbaths ago instead of, say, San Antonio. And I promise I wasn't escaping. I was, in fact, and I hesitate to say it since I gave meetings a hard time, but I was at a meeting. It was a conference on religion and sustainable development at the World Bank. And the World Bank is not normally the sort of place that you expect to hear people talking about faith and religion. But I want to share with you something that their president, Jim Young Kim, said. Listen to this. Always, this is for the World Bank, not for ADRA or someone like that. Always we will speak loudly on behalf of the poor and powerless. No one should live in the abysmal conditions of extreme poverty, living on less than $1.25 a day. Extreme poverty in our world is morally reprehensible and more painful to witness with each passing day. Together we must urgently lift 1 billion people from extreme poverty and help them regain dignity, help them find hope, and help them change their own lives and the whole world's future for the better. I do not think that our world is the way God intended it to be. Yes, we live in a world that has love and beauty and pleasure, but it also has greed and hate and suffering. And I'm not sure that even things like greed and hate and suffering are the worst things. I think those are probably hopelessness and indifference. I want to tell you a story about a meeting I attended a number of years ago in Nepal that changed me. Had an opportunity to visit a community where ADRA was running literacy classes for women. Something that we tend to take for granted, being able to read and write and do basic arithmetic. These classes ran in the evenings because the women were busy during the day. And so we left the office, we travelled out to the village, we got out of the vehicles, we walked up the side of the hill, through the village as night was falling, and came to a room lit by oil lamps where there were a lot of women, probably in ages ranging from 15 to 65, and they were there to learn to read and write and do maths. Now, it turned out that these women weren't satisfied with getting literacy for themselves. They had decided to become community activists, to speak out on the need for girls to have an opportunity for an education. And in true Nepali style, they chose to do that through street theatre. And so I was privileged at the end of their classes to be able to witness them rehearsing for the next market or a religious festival or street fair, whatever it is that they were going to go out and do their theatre. And so as I observed them going through their play, and I was listening to a translator from one of the local staff there so I could follow along, I found myself thinking that they were really quite good. In fact, there was one woman in particular who caught my attention, and I actually saw tears coming down her cheek as she was playing the part of a girl who couldn't go to school. And in that moment, I thought to myself, wow, she is a really great actor. And about half a second later, I thought, you idiot, she's not acting. She's remembering. She's remembering what it felt like to not have that opportunity, to be denied, to be left without hope of an education. And it was in that moment that my indifference disappeared. And it wasn't just a job, and it wasn't just some women learning to read and write. It was much more than that. They were not just obtaining an education, but they were obtaining hope and sharing it. Now, before I go on, I need to ask a question. Is there anybody here who particularly loves rats? If you do, please raise your hand if you're a rat lover of some description. No? All right. Okay, good. I feel safer already. You'll understand in a moment. So back when I was in high school, I had the opportunity to do work experience, not far from here, in the psychology department at the University of Newcastle. And on my first morning, they whipped me straight downstairs to the lab and got me to inject baby rats with some sort of hormone. It was kind of their test to see if I was willing to do anything. And after that, I was the rat. And they subjected me to pretty much every experiment that they had going on in the department. They wired me up to stuff, they made me run laps to see how long I could go before I collapsed, if they were cheering me on or if they were just watching, all kinds of stuff. So, it was interesting. But I can understand a little, I have some sympathy for the rats. And in another university, in another psychology department some years ago, there was another experiment conducted. And to be clear, don't try this at home. I'm not endorsing this experiment in any way, but it is interesting. So in this experiment, rats were popped into two groups, And the rats from each group were dropped into buckets of water that they had to swim in order to stay afloat. And for one group of rats, they were just left there to see how long they could swim. The other group of rats were lifted out of the water about once every half hour or so, and then put straight back in and left to see how long they could swim. The rats that were just left alone lasted a while, hours. The rats that were lifted out occasionally lasted for days. Now, I feel bad for the rats, but what does it tell you about even the slimmest amount of hope? What a difference that can make, how powerful it can be. I believe that hope is what this world needs. And that as people of faith, as followers of Jesus, we have hope to offer. But hope is one of those words that is a verb as well as a noun, and it is not something that can be communicated with words alone. To communicate hope effectively requires action. Jesus knew this, and so he mixed preaching with healing. Words with actions designed to demonstrate love and bring hope. It is what he meant when he spoke about being salt and light in the world. John Stott has this to say about salt. God intends us to penetrate the world. Christian salt has no business to remain snugly in elegant little ecclesiastical salt shakers. Our place is to be rubbed into the community, as salt is rubbed into meat, to stop it from going bad. And when society does go bad, we Christians tend to throw up our hands in pious horror and reproach the non-Christian world. But should we not rather reproach ourselves? One can hardly blame unsalted meat for going bad. It can't do anything else. That's just what it does. The real question to ask is, where is the salt? In the hope poetry of Isaiah chapter 58, there's an answer to that. If you get rid of unfair practices, quit blaming victims, quit gossiping about other people's sins, if you're generous with the hungry and start giving yourselves to the down and out, your lives will begin to glow in the darkness. Your shadowed lives will be bathed in sunlight. I will always show you where to go. I'll give you a full life in the emptiest of places, firm muscles, strong bones. You'll be like a well-watered garden, a gurgling spring that never runs dry. You'll use the old rubble of past lives to build anew. Rebuild the foundations from out of your past. You'll be known as those who can fix anything. Restore old ruins, rebuild and renovate. Make the community livable again. What a powerful vision. What a powerful promise. Two individuals had meetings with Jesus. From what we know, it seems like they both had the same question. And they both pretty much got the same answer. One, we actually don't know a name. We know him as the rich young man or the rich young ruler. He went away unchanged from that meeting. The other, his name was Zacchaeus, and his meeting with Jesus changed everything. The theologian Henri Nouwen asks us to imagine that there was no longer fear among people, no longer rivalry, hostility, bitterness, revenge. He says, just imagine all the people on this planet holding hands, and forming one large circle of love. We say, I can't imagine. And it is hard to imagine. But God says, that's what I imagine. A whole world not only created, but also living in my image. Each of us is called, I believe, to live in God's image. I'm privileged to work for ADRA. It's an agency that transforms the lives of millions of people. But that is nothing compared to the impact we can have as 18 million Adventists, each living our lives in God's image, in the service of others. Now, I did say hope was about action, so I can't leave you just with words. I want to share with you a secret, something that I've learned from many years. And this is something that works across cultural boundaries, across languages. But I'll need you to stand up for me. I'll need you to find another person at your table, turn to face them. Okay, now this is the important bit, because this only works with other people. This is the thing that makes the world a better place every time. Turn to another person and smile. Thank you very much.